Welcome to Reformed Thinking. I'm your host, and joining me today is our expert.
It's good to be here, ready to dig into another fascinating piece of the Hebrew Scriptures.
Absolutely. Today we're focusing on a specific Hebrew verb, bāḥan. Now, this word pops up quite a bit in the Old
It
Testament,
really does.
and it gives us this compelling picture of how God interacts with his people. So we're going to unpack its literal origins, its metaphorical uses, which are quite widespread, and what it really teaches us about God's ways.
That's the plan. We'll look at how it shows God's close observation, not just of individuals, but whole communities too. Hopefully you'll get some new clarity on, why and how God tries hearts and minds and what that really means for us in our walk of faith.
Right. So if you've ever thought about those times when it feels like God is examining you, or maybe just wondered how Scripture portrays that whole process, this deep dive is definitely for you. Let's get started.
Okay, let's unpack this word. To really get a handle on it, we need to go back to the beginning. What's the core, the sort of physical meaning of where does it start?
Okay, so at its most basic, that's bone, it paints a picture of testing precious metals. Think about gold or maybe silver being put into a crucible.
Okay, like a high temperature pot.
Exactly. A vessel that can take intense heat. And the whole point of heating it up like that is to find out the true nature of the metal. Are there imperfections? Or is it genuinely pure?
So separating the good from the bad,
Yeah,
essentially.
precisely. It's about separating the pure from the impure, the valuable stuff from the dross. And this very literal act, this physical process, it really sets the stage for all the other meanings the word takes on.
And the sources often mention this process happens alongside another verb. That one means to smelt or to purify. So you have rest, the testing, and the smelting or purifying often working together.
So it's a two-part thing sometimes.
Kind of. Think about the heat. It doesn't just warm the metal. It fundamentally changes it, or rather reveals its true state. Impurities, the dross, they either rise to the top so they can be skimmed off, or they just fall away, leaving behind the pure, refined metal.
So it sounds very deliberate, not just a quick look.
Oh, absolutely not. Imagine an ancient goldsmith or maybe an assayer, someone whose whole job was testing metal purity. They'd be intensely focused, watching that molten metal, looking for any sign of impurity rising or falling away.
Right, their reputation would depend on getting it right.
Exactly. It wasn't casual. It was a rigorous, meticulous investigation, a critical examination to nail down the true purity, the value, the integrity of the metal.
That's a great visual. So a very practical, hands-on process initially, but then you said it moves beyond that, becomes broader.
It really does. While that's the origin, the physical root, the text show is used metaphorically way more often in the Old Testament.
Okay.
That intense process of testing gold becomes this perfect analogy for investigating things that aren't physical, especially things in the personal realm. Character, motives, intentions.
Ah, I see the connection.
It's about proving, trying, or examining these inherent qualities. And often, the implication is that this process reveals someone's true character, or it's part of a purification process for them.
So the analogy holds. Heat reveals the metal's composition.
And metaphorical testing reveals the genuine nature of a person, or maybe even a situation. It's all about scrutiny, careful examination, to discern what's really there, underneath the surface. Not just a glance, but a deep look.
Okay, now here's where it gets really fascinating for me. When we look at texts in Scripture, overwhelmingly, it's God who's doing the testing. What does that tell us about his character, his relationship with us?
Well, it tells us a lot. First, it shows God is deeply involved, actively engaged in the lives of his people. He's not some distant observer.
He's hands-on, so to speak.
In a divine sense, yes. And it points to his omniscience, his all-knowing nature. He doesn't just see, he examines. And this divine examination isn't arbitrary. It's never random. It's always purposeful.
Purposeful now.
It's aimed at uncovering truth, refining character, and ultimately bringing about his good ends. The sources are really consistent on this. God is the primary subject, the main one doing the editing. That makes it the most significant way the verb is used.
So it paints a picture of a God who is present, who sees everything, and whose actions always have a reason behind them.
Exactly. His testing is never just for kicks. It always has an intended outcome, a goal he's working towards.
So thinking about that divine examination, what specific parts of a person or maybe aspects of life does God most often test or examine with this word?
The sources point to several key areas where God applies this scrutiny. It's quite revealing. First, and maybe most prominently, he tests our innermost being, specifically The texts mention the heart and the kidneys.
Heart and kidneys. That sounds very specific.
It does to our modern ears, but in Hebrew thought, it's deeply symbolic. The heart that's live often stands for more than just emotion. It represents the mind, the intellect, the will, our deepest intentions, our thoughts, our core commitments.
Okay, so the control center, almost.
You could think of it that way. And the kidneys, kleo, sometimes translated as reins, were seen as the seat of our deepest emotions, our affections, even our conscience, our innermost feelings.
So when God tests the heart and kidneys,
He's looking right into our very core, into what truly drives us, what we really desire, what fundamentally motivates our actions. It's about getting to the absolute root of who we are.
wow. Are there specific verses that illustrate this?
Oh, definitely. Jeremiah 11:20 is a classic example. I, Yahweh, am searching the heart, testing the kidneys. It's a clear statement of God's deep insight.
Searching and testing, both actions.
Yes. And it's repeated. Jeremiah 12:3 has the prophet saying to God, "But you, O Yahweh, know me, you see me, and you test my heart towards you." He acknowledges God's scrutiny.
Okay.
Then Jeremiah 17:10 says it again, I, Yahweh, search the heart, I test the kidneys. Just a bit later, Jeremiah 20:12 addresses God as, O Yahweh of hosts, who tests the righteous, who sees the kidneys and the heart.
So it's a recurring theme in Jeremiah.
Yeah, very much so. But not just there. Look at the Psalms. Psalm 7.6 declares God tests the hearts and kidneys. Psalm 17.3, David confesses, You have tested my heart. You have visited me in the night. He's saying God has examined him deeply.
Right.
Proverbs 17.3 makes that direct comparison we talked about. The refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but Yahweh tests hearts. It connects the metaphorical testing right back to the literal refining process.
That's powerful.
And even in Chronicles, 1 Chronicles 29.1, King David understands this about God. He knows God tests the heart and delights in uprightness. So this isn't about a superficial look. It's a deep dive into our hidden motives, our affections, the very core of our character.
Okay, so heart and kidneys are inner being. What else does God test?
Second, the sources show God tests individuals and people directly. Not just their inner parts, but the whole person. He tests people to scrutinize them, to prove them, engaging directly with their overall character and how they're walking in faith.
So like an assessment of the person themselves.
Exactly. Consider Psalm 11.4-5. It says, His eyelids try the children of men. That word try there is des. It means God thoroughly examines people.
His eyelids try, like a close scrutinizing look.
That's the idea. Or look at Psalm 26.2, where the psalmist actually asks God, Test me, O Yahweh, and try me. He's inviting that scrutiny, showing he's willing to be examined and hopefully found genuine.
That takes some courage.
It certainly implies confidence in his integrity, or at least a desire for it. Then you have Psalm 66.10 talking about God testing. His people just like silver is tested, refined by fire. Psalm 81.8 implies a test of obedience when God pleads with Israel to listen to him. And Psalm 139.23 is perhaps the most well-known plea. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. It's a request for that deep internal examination.
Right, I know that one.
And think about Job. Job 7.18 speaks of God examining humans by sending trials, that you should visit him every morning and test him every moment. It connects testing with life's difficulties.
So trials can be a form of testing?
Yes. And Job 23.8 gives that incredible statement of faith. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. He sees the trial as a refining process orchestrated by God. These passages really show God interacting directly with individuals, allowing their true nature to come to the surface.
Okay, so inner being, individuals. What else?
Third, God tests our ways or our conduct, our behavior. It's not just about what's happening inside, but how that inner state actually plays out in our actions, our daily path, our life choices.
So actions matter too.
Definitely. Jeremiah 6.27, we mentioned it briefly, has God appointing Jeremiah to test their ways, acting like an assayer, examining the people's behavior and spiritual condition. It shows the examination extends beyond hidden motives to the outward manifestation of character. How we actually live reveals what's inside.
That makes sense. Inner state and outer actions are connected.
They are. And finally, sometimes God's testing applies to a whole community or nation. And in these cases, it often seems to have a redemptive or a cleansing purpose.
Like purifying a whole group.
Yes. Zechariah 13.9 makes that explicit link again. I will test them like one tests gold. He's talking about bringing a remnant of his people through fire. This passage, and Psalm 66.10 again, they describe this as a kind of purificatory judgment within God's history with his people.
So judgment But for purification, not just destruction.
Exactly. It's using that image of purifying fine metal. It's about shaping the community, bringing them through trials and difficulties together, aiming for a state of greater collective purity and faithfulness, maybe preparing them for his service in a new way.
Okay, so the testing isn't just about finding out what's there. It's about doing something with that information or through the process itself. What would you say is the main goal, the overarching purpose of God's testing, especially for individuals?
That's a great question. The purpose seems to be multifaceted, but it's always presented as being for a good end, something aligned with his character and his plans for his people. First off, it's about revelation and clarity. God's testing reveals our true nature. It shows the real depth of our faith, or lack thereof. It shows the genuineness of our obedience. It really brings to light what's hidden in our hearts and minds.
Things we might not even see ourselves.
Often, yes. It exposes motives and intentions we might be unaware of or trying to ignore. It's a divine showing forth of what's truly inside.
Okay, revelation. What else?
Second, and very closely linked, is refinement and purification. This is that gold analogy again. The testing aims to remove the impurities, the dross, from our lives.
And dross isn't just sin.
Not necessarily just outright sin. It could be self-reliance, hidden idols, misplaced affections, anxieties, anything that hinders our relationship with him or makes us less useful in his service. The testing process helps to burn that away.
So it makes us pure, like the gold.
Exactly. It's a purification process, making us more like that precious metal, transforming us into something more valuable and fit for his purposes. That line from Job 23.0, when he has tested me, I will come forth as gold, that captures it perfectly, coming out stronger, purer, more authentically his.
Revelation, refinement. Is there more?
Yes. Third, it serves for shaping and development, spiritual growth. We saw this with Job 7.18, how testing can involve challenges, even calamities. Job 34.36 talks about trial by suffering.
Right, suffering as a test.
These events, as difficult and sometimes painful as they are, they serve to mold us, to strengthen us. They build perseverance, patience, hope, Christ-like character. They are tools God uses to foster spiritual maturity.
So it's formative.
Very much so. And finally, it relates to accountability and righteousness. God acts as a righteous judge. He tests hearts and kidneys, the deepest parts, partly to hold individuals accountable. It's a just assessment, ensuring that truth and justice prevail, even in the hidden places of our lives. His testing is always perfectly fair, according to his righteous standard.
Okay, that provides a really comprehensive picture of God's purpose in testing. But you mentioned earlier the sources also talk about humans testing God. How is that different? What does that imply?
Yes, this is a really crucial distinction. It helps us see the nuances of this even more clearly. When humans test or tempt God using the same verb, it almost always carries a different negative connotation.
Negative how?
It typically signifies unbelief. It's like a challenge to God's authority or a questioning of his promises, his character, his goodness. Imagine questioning the quality of the gold before it's even been refined, or doubting the refiner's skill. It implies suspicion, doubt, a real lack of trust.
So it's coming from a place of skepticism.
Often, yes. Look at Malachi 3.10. Now, this one is interesting because God actually invites them to test him regarding tithes. Test me now in this, says Yahweh, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven.
So sometimes it's okay.
In that specific context, it's an invitation to experience his faithfulness by being obedient first. It's not skeptical testing. It's more like obey and see if I'm not faithful. But then contrast that with Malachi 3.15, which speaks negatively of the wicked who tested God and escaped immediate judgment, implying they brazenly challenged him.
Okay, I see the difference.
And Psalm 95.9 is very clear. It recalls Israel testing God in the wilderness. Your fathers tested me. They tried me, though they had seen my work. They doubted his provision and goodness despite seeing miracle after miracle.
Right, complaining in the desert.
Exactly. It was a posture of skepticism, defiance, and fundamental distrust in his goodness, even after seeing his power. This is worlds apart from God's testing of us, which, as we've seen, is always righteous and ultimately beneficial for his people. When humans test God, it's usually an act of suspicion, trying to force his hand or prove him wrong, rather than submitting in faith. It often comes from a heart that's already rebelling.
That's a really important contrast. Are there any other ways DOS is used that sort of broaden our understanding beyond God testing us or us testing God?
Yes, there's another interesting metaphorical extension. It's used for discerning information, specifically words.
Testing words. How does that work?
Well, the book of Job makes this comparison twice. It says that just as the mouth tastes food to discern its quality, The ear tests words.
Like judging what you hear.
Precisely. Job 12.11 asks, "Does not the ear test words as the mouth tastes food?" And Job 34.3 repeats it. For the ear tests words as the palate tastes food. It highlights this need we have for careful discernment, for critical examination of what we hear. We shouldn't just accept everything at face value.
So applying the same kind of scrutiny to words as an assayer applies to gold.
That's the idea. Evaluating the truth, the quality, the source, the effect of spoken or written words. Are they true? Are they helpful? Are they pure? Or do they contain the dross of falsehood or malice? It points towards a spiritual discipline of carefully evaluating messages, teachings, everything we take in through our ears. Not being naive, but seeking to understand if words ring true.
That adds another layer. It's a very versatile word. Could you give us a sense, maybe briefly, of how it appears grammatically? Does that help understand the nuances?
It definitely can. Understanding the grammatical forms, the stems in Hebrew, helps us see the action from different angles. The most common form is the qual stem. That's the basic active voice. It occurs 25 times and just means the subject is actively doing the testing.
Okay, like God tests.
Exactly. We see it in different tenses. Perfect tense, showing completed action, like Bunta, you tested in Psalm 17.3, or Banani, he tested me in Job 23.0. Done deal.
Right.
Then the imperfect tense, often ongoing or future action, like Yvonne, he will test, or he tests in Psalm 11.5, describing God's regular activity. We also get imperatives, commands like Branani test me in Psalm 26.2, that direct request to God. And infinitives expressing the general action like trust and test in Zechariah 13.9. And finally, the participle bone, one who tests or testing in Jeremiah 11.20, describing God's role as the tester. So qual is all about the active performance of testing.
Okay, that's the active voice. What else?
Then there's the nephal stem. This shows up 3 times and is passive. It means to be put to the test or to be tried, proved. Here, the subject isn't doing the testing, they are receiving it. They are the one being examined.
So experiencing the test.
Exactly. In Genesis 42, Joseph's brothers are told, "By this you shall be tested, and your words will be proved." They were undergoing the scrutiny. Job 34.36 also uses it passively, suggesting Job should be tested because of his words. It emphasizes the experience of being under trial.
Okay. Active and passive, is that it?
There's one more very rare one. The pool stem. It might appear once in Ezekiel 21.18, though scholars debated. It's also passive, meaning to be tested, maybe with a slightly more intensive feel than nephal. But its rarity and the debate around that specific verse make it less central than qual and nephal.
So mostly active, God testing, and sometimes passive, us being tested.
That's the main picture, yes. It highlights both God's action and our experience.
Now, with all these uses and forms, are there related nouns derived from dust that give us even more insight?
Yes, there are. And seeing the nouns helps firm up the concepts. Some connections are clear. But there's one important distinction we need to make. First, there's the noun booth. This means testing, trial, or proof. It's the result or the act of testing.
Like the test itself.
Right. Isaiah 28.6 uses it in the phrase even bāḥan, a tested stone, or a stone of proof. It refers to a cornerstone that has been thoroughly tested and proven reliable, stable, fit for the foundation. It signifies something that has passed the test.
Okay, a proven commodity.
Exactly. Then there's bāḥan. This refers to the person doing the testing, the assayer, the one who tries metals.
Ah, the tester.
Yes. Jeremiah 6.27 uses this when God appoints Jeremiah. I have made you an assayer, bāḥan, and tester among my people, that you may know and test in their way. It directly links back to that skilled person from the literal origin.
Got it. Assayer.
Now here's the important distinction I mentioned. There are a couple of words that sound very similar. Bāḥan and bāḥan.
Yeah.
These appear in places like Isaiah 32.16 and 23.13, and they mean watchtower or maybe siege tower.
Oh, okay. Sounds like testing, but it's a tower.
Exactly. And it's easy to think they're related because they sound alike. But the linguistic sources are quite clear. These tower words do not come from the root, meaning to test. They likely come from a different root altogether, probably related to looking out or watching.
So, same sound, different root, different meaning.
Precisely. It's a common trap in Hebrew. Phonetic similarity doesn't always mean semantic connection. So, bāḥan, testing proof, and bāḥan are related to our verb. The tower words are not. Keeping that straight is important for accurate understanding.
That's a really helpful clarification. Avoids confusion. Okay, so Madness doesn't operate in a vacuum. How does it relate to other Hebrew verbs that also talk about testing or examining? You mentioned are earlier. Are there others?
Oh yes, it's part of a whole network, a semantic field of related terms. Seeing how does interacts with these other verbs helps us pinpoint its specific nuance. Each word adds a slightly different shade of meaning.
Like different tools for examination.
That's a good way to put it. We already discussed to smelt, to purify. That's the closest partner, often appearing right alongside des. Think of ishta as discovering the nature purity, and kia as the active removal of impurity through fire. They work together in places like Jeremiah 6, Zechariah 13, several Psalms, Proverbs 17.3. It's a key pair.
Okay. Testing and purifying.
Then there's try, to tempt or to put to the proof. We saw this used when humans test God skeptically, Psalm 95.9, Malachi 3.15, but also when the psalmist asks God to test him, Psalm 26.2, alongside days. It seems to carry a sense of proving through experience, putting something or someone to the proof in a practical way.
Trying something out.
Kind of. Then there's simply to know or to recognize. When it's paired with, like in Jeremiah 6.27, 12.3, Psalm 139.23, it suggests that the testing leads to knowledge. The examination reveals something, which then leads to a deeper understanding or recognition of the truth. Testing results in knowing.
Okay. The outcome of the test.
Right. We also see Ketri to investigate, to visit, to attend to. It appears with dross in Psalm 17.3 and Job 7.18. It adds a sense of purposeful scrutiny, of focused investigation or visitation.
A deliberate inspection.
Yes. And similar are both meaning to see or to perceive, is used with Jeremiah 12.3, 20.1, and Psalm 139.24, suggesting testing involves direct visual inspection. Is paired with it in Psalm 11.4. His eyes behold, his eyelids test. Both emphasize the divine gaze, the careful observation involved in testing.
So seeing is part of testing.
It can be. And remember that fascinating parallel with doth to taste. Job 12.1 and 34.3 use it metaphorically. The ear tests given words, like the mouth tastes food. It connects testing to sensory discernment, evaluating the quality of words through careful listening.
Tasting words. I like that.
It's evocative, isn't it? And finally, to judge. It appears with Jeremiah 11.20, O Yahweh of hosts, who judges righteously, who tests the heart and the kidneys. This pairing reinforces God's role as a righteous judge whose examination is part of a just assessment, leading towards judgment.
So testing and judging are linked.
They certainly can be. Seeing as in relation to all these other verbs, smelting, trying, knowing, investigating, seeing, tasting, judging it, really fills out the picture, showing the richness and the different facets of examination in the Hebrew mindset.
This whole exploration of dus is incredibly rich. Taking all this in, considering the sources, what are some of the key theological implications for us? Particularly thinking from a Reformed perspective, what does this really mean for our faith, our lives?
That's the crucial question, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does this ancient word speak to us today? I think docs really illuminate several core truths central to our faith, especially within a Reformed framework. First, it strongly emphasizes God's sovereignty in absolutely everything, including our trials. The fact that God is overwhelmingly the one doing the testing shows that testing isn't random. It's not bad luck or meaningless suffering. It's an intentional, sovereign act by our Creator.
He's initiating it, directing it.
Exactly. He initiates these periods for his specific, wise purposes. He oversees every aspect. So when we face difficulties, we shouldn't see them as cosmic accidents, but potentially as part of God's deliberate and ultimately good work in our lives. His hand is always on the thermostat of the refining furnace, so to speak.
That changes how you view hardship.
It really does. Second, it underscores his perfect, intimate knowledge of us. That focus on testing the heart and kidneys. It's a powerful picture of his complete understanding of everything inside us, our thoughts, motives, desires, fears. Nothing is hidden.
Which is both comforting and maybe a little unnerving.
Both. It's comforting because he knows us completely, flaws and all, and still works for our good. He knows our weaknesses, our struggles, and his testing is calibrated perfectly. But it's also a call to honesty and openness before him. We can't hide. He sees right through any superficial piety to the reality within. He knows us better than we know ourselves.
Okay. Sovereignty, perfect knowledge. What else?
Third, and this is so central, testing is presented primarily as a means of purification and confirmation to Christ. That gold refining image is key. God's testing isn't meant to destroy us if we're his children. It's meant to cleanse us.
Removing the dross.
Exactly. Removing not just obvious sin, but also the more subtle things. Self-reliance, pride, fear, worldly attachments, idols we might not even recognize. The testing process doesn't just identify these, it actively helps to burn them away through the experience, leaving behind the pure gold of faith, humility, and Christlikeness.
So it's part of our sanctification.
Precisely. It's how he shapes us, molds us more closely into the image of his Son. It's often painful, yes, but it's a profoundly loving process designed to make us more holy, more useful, more truly ourselves in him. It yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness.
That's a vital perspective.
Fourth, flowing from his sovereignty and purpose, we have the assurance of his good purpose in testing. Even when it involves suffering, like with Job, for the believer, it's not ultimately punitive in the sense of condemnation. It's purificatory. Romans 8.2a applies here. He's working all things together for good for those who love him.
So even the hard tests.
Even the hardest. The intended outcome for those who belong to him is to emerge stronger, purer, more refined, like that gold, tried and approved. It's a fundamentally gracious work of his hand, preparing us for his eternal purposes, building perseverance, character, and hope. He permits trials not to break his children, but to build them.
Assurance in the midst of trial. That's huge.
It is. And finally, understanding guides our proper response to testing. Knowing God is the sovereign, wise, loving examiner who tests for our ultimate good, and his glory should lead us to respond with faith and trust, not rebellion or despair.
So instead of asking, why me, maybe ask, what are you teaching me?
Something like that. Instead of questioning his goodness or his authority when trials come, which is how humans test God in unbelief, we're called to yield to his process, to submit humbly, trust his wisdom even when we don't understand, and cooperate with his refining work, knowing he is shaping us. It's about leaning into his hand, not pulling away.
Faith, trust, submission. Not easy, but essential.
Absolutely. That contrast between our response and the skeptical testing of God is stark. Our call is to trust the refiner.
Wow. That's a really compelling look at just one Hebrew word. It definitely makes you stop and think about your own walk, how you interpret the challenges life throws your way. It reframes things quite a bit.
It really does. It gives such a clear picture of God's active, purposeful hand in shaping his people. His testing isn't arbitrary. It's an act of intricate grace and loving design.
This deep dive into text certainly offers a lot to chew on. Knowing that God examines our hearts not to condemn, but to purify, well, that provides some powerful encouragement, doesn't it? No matter the circumstance.
It really should.
It leaves us with a question to ponder, perhaps. What might it look like for you personally to really embrace God's refining work in your life today? To yield to that loving, purposeful scrutiny?
That's a good question to sit with. Just thinking about the precision, the care, the ultimate goal behind it all. It's profound.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us on Reformed Thinking. Until next time, may you continue to grow in knowledge and in grace.